Recording. Okay, hi everybody. My name is Morgan. I am the Development and Communications Coordinator here with Safe and Sound. And today I am so excited. We have Commissioner Roberts from the Department of Neighborhood Services with us. So Commissioner Roberts is the Commissioner of Building Inspection with the Department of Neighborhood Services. And this is her 21st year with the city. And we are also joined by Maritza Ugarte, the Program Director of Safe and Sound, who's been with Safe and Sound for over 8 years. And she has been through many roles here. She's worked as a neighborhood safety coordinator. And so we are so excited to have both of you here to answer some questions that residents have about the Department of Neighborhood Services. So Commissioner Roberts, thank you for being here. And I'm wondering if you could just start us off with a brief overview of what the Department of Neighborhood Services is, and then also just a little bit about your role.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me today. I'm excited to be here, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get some great information out to the viewers of today's webinar. So the Department of Neighborhood Services it actually does a lot within the community. So I'll just really quickly touch on some of the major things that we do. We perform residential and commercial inspections of fire inspections, as well as property maintenance inspections. So if you've got a home in your neighborhood that is in disrepair, you can call our department. We'll send an inspector out and they will do an inspection. It doesn't matter if it's owner occupied or if you're a renter and you're having problems in your property that you may rent. Our team will go on out and take a look and see if there's any building code or fire code violations that exist. We also do all of the plan review for building permits and the inspections for building permits. So if you wanted to repair a porch or build a new set of stairs or do some sort of major repairs to your property, chances are you would need a permit through our department, where you'd come on down, you'd take out the permit, and then you'd get to meet our inspectors throughout the actual work being done itself, so that we can inspect and make sure that the work is being done properly and according to code. We have an outreach team that you'll see hopefully out in the community if you attend community events, where their role there is really just to help get information out to the community about all the different programs that we provide and the different types of services that we have. And they're a really good way. We also provide some training for both landlords and tenants to let them know what rules apply to them and sort of how to go about either renting their properties out or being a tenant, and what to look for when you're looking at a property that you may want to rent. We also have what we call our special enforcement team. This group works out very closely with your community liaison officers in each police district. And those guys and gals work closely with the police to try to solve some of the really tough problems in your community. So that's things like drug houses and different uses that maybe aren't supposed to be where they are. Somebody who has a party house in the middle of a residential neighborhood, or is using an old warehouse for parties on the weekends, all sorts of different things that primarily fall in our zoning code, but can also be reflected in both the building and the zoning codes as well. We have all of our trades divisions. So these are the inspectors that go out and do the inspections when buildings are being built or renovated. We have a condemnation section that's responsible for the raising of buildings. So the buildings that have maybe had a fire or are so dilapidated that they really don't make sense to repair, or the cost of repairs is too high. We have a team that evaluates those properties and issues raise orders, and then follows up with the demolition contractors to make sure that they're demolished. We also perform inspections for animals, and we do rat baiting. And there's probably even more that's not coming to mind right now, but it's a lot of work is accomplished by our team of about 230 total employees. My role as Commissioner of Building Inspection is to lead the team. We definitely take a team approach here in DNS. I I'm unique in that I was an inspector for many of my 21 years before moving into management. And so I think it gives me just a slightly different perspective of the work that our teams do, because I've been out and I've done a lot of it myself. So my job is to keep things moving, look for ways to do our jobs better. If there's problems that can't be resolved by speaking with managers and supervisors, those issues will elevate to me often as well. And really just to try to do good in our community and get our team all headed in the same direction.
All right, thank you. Yeah, Maritza, if you want to go ahead and tell everybody a little bit how Safe and Sound specifically works with the Department of Neighborhood Services, and then we can jump into some questions.
Sure, I can do that. I'll spend very briefly time, but as you mentioned, Commissioner Roberts, again, thank you for being here. There's tons of stuff that you guys are out doing in the community, and so we are very grateful for the partnership that we've been able to have with Department of Neighborhood Services throughout the different realms of scope of work that you guys do. From special enforcement, we've been able to work closely with our neighborhood safety coordinators, our residents, connecting them to sort of some of the other programs that you guys have to create murals out in the neighborhoods, to neighborhood walks. We've been able to partner with neighborhood services for many different projects, and we are very appreciative of that partnership. Due to that and just our ongoing relationship, we usually get a lot of some of common questions as it relates to the services that you all may provide or the connection that you all have to the neighborhoods that we serve or that we operate in. So I want to go ahead and to get into some of those commonly asked questions. And I know that there may be some viewers who may have some additional questions. So we want to make sure that we get those asked during this time with us. So one of those first things, and I'm not listing them in priority, but something that comes up a lot, especially around the springtime and as the snow melts. And, you know, I know we're not trying to think about snow. I know it's coming, but more in the springtime and sometimes in specific vacant lots or like vacant areas is the issue of illegal dumping. And so we get a lot of residents who are, you know, both either could rent or own in a specific neighborhood who share their concerns about illegal dumping and sort of like the blight issue of it and sort of what it brings to this, like, you know, the perspective that I might bring to a neighborhood that is not cared for, things like that. Could you talk a little bit about what DNS and your connection to addressing illegal dumping in the city of Milwaukee?
There, it helps if I get off mute. Yeah, absolutely. So I think you're right that we always have a saying, it's like garbage creates garbage. And the more we neglect an area and allow garbage to stay on a vacant lot or at the alley or wherever it may be in our community, it just asks for more garbage to be dumped there. So it's really important for the city and for our neighborhoods that we get in and we clean up the garbage as quickly as possible. There's sort of two aspects to this. There's and we do both here at DNS. So one aspect is getting a cleanup order. And I'm sure there'll be some viewers here of this webinar who may have received a cleanup order, which is where our staff goes out either through surveying that we've been asked to do to check out a particular area, or just as we're out in our daily work, or as we receive a complaint, we'll observe garbage at a property and we'll post an order on the door or the building itself, letting someone know they've got a certain amount of time to clean it up. We also mail something saying the same thing out to the owner of record. In case this is a rental property, we want to make sure the owner knows as well. And in those instances, it's really, really important for people to do their best to clean it up if they can. And if they know they can clean it up, please call the inspector's number that's listed on the order as quickly as possible to let them know what your plans are to clean it up. If they don't clean it up, we will send an inspector out. We'll send a contractor out to clean it up. And that happens pretty quickly. And then the charges that the contractor has will go to the property taxes for that property. So, if someone wants to help keep their neighborhood clean and they see this notice, please take care of it right away and call us as soon as possible so that we don't send that contractor out and that no charges get assessed to the property. Now, I know the other side of that is a lot of that garbage gets there through dumping, and it's not necessarily the fault of the people that own or live at the home or the business for that matter. And it happens all over the city, and it's a really unfortunate problem that we're looking to solve. The way the code is written is such that regardless of how the litter gets there, the owner of the property is responsible. And I know that's not fair, and I get that, but that's just unfortunately the way it has to be written. However, we've been really trying to get to illegal dumping because we recognize that people are victimized, and we recognize it's not people's faults pretty often. And so we have an illegal dumping program that we've been building throughout the city over the last few years. This program allows residents who observe dumping to contact our department and provide information through, typically it's an online form. You can go to our website and fill out some information. It's milwaukee.gov/dumping. And if you fill out all the information and we then use that information, do an investigation, and ultimately are able to issue a citation to whoever dumped, you or whomever submits the information can receive a reward up to $1,000. So what we're hoping happens, and what we've seen happen, is that really gives residents incentive to speak up. It gives them an opportunity to feel that their voices are being heard, because I know a lot of times you don't necessarily want to speak up if you are afraid someone might retaliate, or you know the person, you don't want to create a problem. But if you do so and we can successfully prosecute them, you can receive up to $1,000. And we are issuing citations to the people who dump. They're a little over $1,900. So they're the biggest citation I know we can issue here in this department. And our goal is to start to make it so risky to dump, because now we never know who's watching and who could report and could somebody get a citation, that people just make better choices and they take their garbage to an appropriate waste station or dispose of it properly. And slowly we start to see those dumping problems decrease.
Thank you. You talked a little bit about the inspectors going out and from time to time writing orders. And so it's funny you mentioned the letter that you would receive in the different various communications. I won't tell on some of our residents, but sometimes they're like, oh, we don't know what it means, so we just throw it away. We're asking our residents, please don't throw it away. If you have any questions, contact the inspector that's on the letter, ask them questions, because we would hate for that to come out of taxes, things like that. But to that point, I think we were also made aware that there is a DNS Repair Program, or some kind of program that could assist in the case that somebody may need some support or some resources to address some external violations or things at their house. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yep. So the city itself actually has a bunch of programs that all do slightly different things, have slightly different amounts associated with them, and are housed in different departments throughout the city. Specific to DNS, we have two. We have the Neighborhood Improvement Program and the Compliance Loan Program. And they're similar but different. So if someone is looking, and these are to determine eligibility for these types of programs, they work to provide, so for both instances, they are interest-free or low-interest loans of a varying time frame of time that allows, and then we use that money to make repairs to the property. So for Compliance Loan Program, it's just under $15,000 of available money per project to make repairs to the exterior of the buildings. The Neighborhood Improvement Program is very similar, slightly different criteria, but about that same cost. And so what happens is when a homeowner may receive an order from our department indicating that they now have problems that need to be fixed, building code issues that need to be fixed, our inspection team should be where they feel there's eligibility, meaning it's owner occupied, things of that nature. They'll give you information and recommend that you give our loan coordinator a call. She'll walk you through, ask a bunch of questions, try to figure out again if you meet those basic eligibility requirements, and then your application will be further considered for approval. These are very popular programs. They do, we fill up kind of quick, but they're great because it really helps people who otherwise are anchors in the community. They've probably lived in these properties for forever, but they just need a little bit of help to keep the properties maintained in a way that doesn't have any code violations. So definitely, if you have any questions, if you receive an order and you don't have that information attached to it, always call your inspector and ask questions. And that also means, even if you just don't understand, to your point, you don't understand what you've received in the mail, there's always going to be a name and a phone number. Please call and ask that question of whatever it is you have, and we will help explain to you not only what it's about, but what the time frame is, and maybe what some resources are that are available to help you.
That's great. And it kind of ties into the next question, which is going to be like, you know, sort of how does the DNS like written orders work and like the timeline around those and things like that. So that's super helpful. I think in our experience, we've been able to help some residents call DNS and connect with their inspector and, you know, be very responsive to questions they may have. So that way we're not just like dismissing and, you know, dismissing the order and making sure it gets addressed. So you talked a little bit about the order timeline. Does it like, is there a process for how orders are written? I think you talked a little bit about that. And does it like, are there different orders that are written for different things, residential versus commercial, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the most part, we are a complaint-based organization, meaning if we've gone out and we've inspected a property and issued an order, chances are more often than not, it's because we've received a complaint. And those complaints can come from anywhere. They may be a neighbor, they may be someone driving down the street, they could be, you know, a neighborhood group who's looking to make improvements to a neighborhood overall. So it comes from all sorts of different places. We go out, we do the survey, whether it's interior or exterior, depending upon what it is, and then we'll write the order. Now, certain orders have a very short compliance timeframe. Compliance timeframe meaning how long people get to get the work done. If it's a really urgent matter, something that's very much a life safety issue, a fire issue that could create a fire, we may give anywhere between 3 and 5 days. It's a really short time frame because we know that there's an urgency in getting that problem fixed. On the other side, let's say it's November or December and we realize a property needs to be painted. They're not going to get a paint order that's due in 30 days because there's no way they could paint the outside of a building in the middle of winter. So those are typically 180 days from the time that they're issued. And so that takes us to say, you know, June of the following year, to use that example. So depending upon the urgency and what the actual violation is, our inspectors set a time frame that is reasonable for someone to make the repair, but also not so long that somebody's just living with a problem any longer than they need to.
Great, thank you. And then at this point, Morgan, I'm going to check to see, are there any questions maybe in the comments that we're having right now? If not, I'll keep going. Okay, sounds good. You talked a little bit about just like, you know, complaint-based process and things like that. And I know that when we've had like neighborhood walks or perhaps we're, you know, connecting with a block club or different resident groups who are very active in their neighborhood, they've often talked about, you know, being aware of the calling the 286 city phone number. But we're also aware that there's like an app now, and a lot of people have smartphones nowadays. And can you talk a little bit about how a resident could go about reporting some of these things that kind of impact their quality of life at a neighborhood level through the city app?
Yeah, not a problem. I'm just getting to the app on my phone. Yeah, so the app itself, if you go, I'm an iPhone user. I can't tell you how to do it on an Android, but if you go to your app store and you look up MKE, that stands for Milwaukee, MKE Mobile Action, you will find the app and it's free. You just click on it, you download it. It looks like let's see if I can do this to help. See the little calatrava there, the light blue one next to the thing that looks like a speedometer? It's the light blue one. It's a picture of the art museum. And that's the one you want. And if you download it and you open it up, you'll see that it has all sorts of different ways in which you can report problems to the city. The nice thing about this app is that it's not just specific to DNS, but it's really any problem, pretty much, that you're going to see throughout the city. So it could be something that goes to the Department of Public Works, a street light is out, or it snowed and it's 2 days later and your street hasn't gotten plowed, or your corners haven't gotten plowed out, whatever the case might be. This is nice because everything is in one place. For us specifically, at the top, you'll see it says request service, that blue bar right under the picture of the city. And if you click on that, this takes you all to sort of to each section or department of the city. So forestry, do you need to report a tree that's fallen down? Or street maintenance, are there potholes? And then there is a section called Department of Neighborhood Services. And if you click on that, you'll get another menu of information about different options of things you can report. It can be garbage. It can be that you want to file a complaint about a property for maintenance. It can be that you want to discuss a rat issue. So it's nice because once you figure out what it is you specifically want to click on and you work your way through all the menus, It has a GPS type of function to it, so it knows where you are, and it will suggest the address. So if you're standing in front of 111 Main Street and you tell it, this is what I want it to do, it's going to try to tell you, hopefully, that you're at 111 Main Street, so you don't have to figure out the address. Because sometimes you might be driving down an alley and you won't know what the address is of the house, but you see the garbage piled up in the backyard. Now, if it suggests an address that's not quite right, but pretty close, because I think any of us that have used GPS knows you kind of get close. Sometimes you don't get perfect. You can also just go in and change it. So if you happen to know it's 115, you can go in and switch it from 111. This funnels directly into the city's computer system that then knows which department to distribute the complaints to. And then we see it on our side, just like any other complaint that comes in the system.
Great. That's super great to know. And I can't emphasize enough, somebody who's millennial, not as tech savvy, the GPS function is amazing because you take a picture, it like locates where you are, and it's super helpful, a very easy way to connect with the city department that needs to be, of an issue that needs to be addressed. You talked a little bit about the city app, which I really appreciate. We also want to talk about something you mentioned earlier with the condemnation sort of department and things like that. We, in operating, obviously doing a lot of door-to-door outreach with the residents that we work with, sometimes we come across a resident who may live next door to a house that is up to be raised in the next coming years or whatever the timeline may be. And so the residents will share with us like, we know it's on the race order, but it's taking a year, 2 years, things like that. Could you talk a little bit about how the race order kind of gets determined and like what that process is like and what residents can expect from that?
Okay. So we all have properties in our districts that are exactly that, where you look at it and you go, gosh, when is this going to come down, or when is it going to get fixed? What's happening with it? It's, it looks terrible. And I've been looking at it for what feels like forever. I think it's important for the viewers to know that for the city to condemn a property, which means to issue that raise order on the property, it's a pretty involved process. It's a legal process. The first thing is the property has to be vacant. So if a property is in really bad shape, but people live in it, we will not raise the property, generally speaking. The second thing to know is that there's sort of two things that could be happening. It could be a privately owned property, or it could be a city-owned property. And so that's sort of something we need to think about right away, because if the city owns it, well, that's great, because now we know who the owner is. If it's privately owned, the city has a little less authority to do it as quickly because we would still issue the order. We would tell them they need to raise it. If there's a fire and the property's insured, maybe they're working with their insurance company. So sometimes things just take longer than we'd like to see. How we determine if a property needs to be raised is math. So we look at what the city assesses the property at, how much the house and the land is worth. And then we say if the repair costs are 50% of that amount or more, so 51% or more, then the property is legally eligible to be raised. So that's kind of the first criteria we have to figure out before we can do anything. If we can raise the property based on that mathematical equation, then we start a series of notifications to the owners. And there's we have to put notice in the newspaper, a special newspaper, but we have to let the public know of our intention. This is all legal stuff we're obligated to do. Once we get through all those steps, and those steps can take anywhere between 30 and 60 days, then if it's all clear and we can continue to move forward, then we can start to put it in a bid package to, and these are typically the city-owned properties, which is about half of the properties you see that are on the race list. We can put it in a bid package so that a contractor can bid on a number of properties at one time that they'll ultimately go and raise. We do those all the time. I would say every month or so, we're putting together a package of a bunch of houses. And once we award that bid package to the contractor, it's really up to them to manage their workload and get to the home in a timely fashion. Just very honestly, we have only 3 contractors right now doing that work for the city. So it does take a while just because there's a lot of houses and not a lot of people doing the work, and the work takes time when they get started on a property. We are constantly monitoring that. And if one of the contractors starts to fall behind, or runs into trouble or does other jobs, we can try to get that home, if it's priority, into a different contractor's bid package. But there's legal issues to doing that. So it's not like it's something we do very easily, but we are always working with our contractors to try to encourage them to get get these properties raised as quickly as possible. And we're always getting new ones too. So it's kind of a cycle.
Thank you for that. Would you say, is there a way for residents to see like where the status is, like where we are in the process, or like where would a property be in the process? Is there a way for them to do that?
So we have what's called our land management system. It's called a SELA, and it is available through pretty much any of the city's websites, but certainly the Department of Neighborhood Services has a link on our website, and it's where all property data lives. So if you want to look up your neighbor's house and find out if there was a violation written on it, or you're a renter and you're curious if this property has had a lot of violations in the past, all that data, including information about raising, everything we do lives in this database. So a resident could log in and they could search by address and they could find out pretty much any information that they need.
Thank you for that. And you mentioned another really great resource. So obviously there's a couple of data points or data that's available to the residents that live in the city of Milwaukee in case they wanted to look something up. And you mentioned, like, you know, if a renter was looking to go into a property, like what kinds of things they may want to look at and consider when going into a property. One of them being like looking up the address they're going to move into. So can you talk a little bit about Rentsmart and maybe the landlord training? I think we found this to be like really great resources for people who, either the residents who are renting currently want to know sort of like what their rights are, like know what they can expect and what's their responsibility when it comes to renting from a property. And then also maybe some residents who are looking to own property and be responsible property owners in the neighborhood that they're going to be owning the property in. So if you could talk about that.
These are two really great programs that we offer, and they're both offered in both English and Spanish. So there'll be an English version, and then there'll be separate classes scheduled in Spanish for our Spanish speaking residents. I'll start with the landlord training program. So that's older than the Rentsmart program. We've been doing this one a long, long time. And it really is educational in nature for landlords or people who are thinking about becoming landlords, to help educate them on their responsibilities, what they have to do legally, how they have to rent. It educates them on, discriminatory practices that they cannot employ when they're screening potential renters. And then it also explains their rights if they run into renters who are doing damage to their property or doing things that are illegal. What can they do as a landlord to help fix that problem? So we really wanted to give landlords a comprehensive idea of, because I think people sometimes buy a property or two thinking it's pretty easy and it's not going to be much work and I'm going to make a bunch of money, and certainly they can be profitable, but there is a lot of responsibilities that come with owning that property, and we wanted to help educate landlords on that. The flip side is our newer program that you mentioned called our Rentsmart Program. This is the other side of the coin for tenants. This program's neat because we also recognize not everybody knows how to be a tenant, and it starts with things as basic as budgeting. We will walk people through, what is your income every month? What do you spend your money on? So, do you have loans? What do you have? So really, like, realistically, what can you spend on your rent? And then it walks people through, now that you know what you can spend, let's empower you as a tenant to find out about the properties that you might be considering. So we talk to them about coming on using our land management system to learn about properties. We give them tips on how to work with a landlord so that the tenant's rights are protected throughout the negotiation process. What should be on a lease? What does a lease look like? What are your rights when you sign a lease? What can and can't you do as a tenant? What's going to get you in trouble if you do as a tenant? And then some legal recourse for tenants if they feel that they've had a law broken or been treated unfairly. We want to make sure that they have resources in hand for legal counseling services that can help them. And really the idea there on both sides of the coin is just to help people help themselves through their process. And they're free. All the programs are free. You just have to sign up so we know who's coming. And We offer them during the day, we offer them at night, we're offering some of them virtually now, of course, with COVID. So they're really a great resource for people who are taking that step and either renting for the first time or owning for the first time as a landlord.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And I know we've definitely, some of our staff has taken advantage of that. I think like, me personally, I've done the landlord training twice now, and I'm not a landlord, but definitely the information that's provided during that is super, super helpful for anybody who lives in the city and is connected to other residents that live in the city of Milwaukee as well. Okay, so then I wanted to ask you a little bit about any other sort of things that maybe we don't think about DNS, or like what would be the best way to connect with our like DNS inspectors or people that work for your department? Does it obviously, I'm guessing it depends on the subject and the question they may have, but like what would be the best way for us to ask more questions if residents had specific questions about who they connect with in the department, or like some more information about some of the resources and programs you mentioned? Like how would one get connected to your department? Because I know they have a lot. We have a lot going on there.
Almost made it through without that, darn it. A couple of different ways. 286 City is the clearinghouse for all complaints for the city. And so if someone is concerned, they can always just call that. And regardless of what you're complaining about, your complaint will get funneled into the proper department and reach the right person. So that's one way. Of course, the app, which we just talked about, basically does the same thing. And that's a good resource, especially if you're out on the go and you want to use the features of the geolocation device. That's great. People can also call 286-2268, which is sort of the intake line, but it's just for the Department of Neighborhood Services. It's not just for all the city. It's really specific to our department. So if you have a question about something that we may or may not be able to do, if you have a question about DNS in general, that's a good place to start also. And the clerical staff that monitor those phone calls are very knowledgeable. They know everything about the department, and they will get you to the right person.
Great. And I know I had a chance to check out the website a couple, like today before us talking, and there's a lot of resources, a lot of information on the website as well. I also did notice that there is a part that talks about if you speak Spanish, here's what you would connect. So I do want to mention to any viewers, si hay un interés en hacer esto o preguntarle preguntas al Departamento de Servicios del Vecindario en español, podremos hacerlo eso en el futuro. Si tiene usted algunas preguntas, puede conectarse con alguna de las personas que trabaja aquí en Safe and Sound, y podemos hacer eso en el futuro para asegurarse de que ustedes tengan sus preguntas, que podamos responder a sus preguntas que tengan sobre ese departamento de la ciudad que tiene muchos recursos. So again, just trying to gauge interest. If there's anybody who's viewing us, I think it would be a good idea to have a Q&A with for some of our residents who are Spanish speaking and have had questions in the past. We definitely could either connect them to some of the awesome people we know at Department of Neighborhood Services who speak Spanish, or we could do a future Q&A that's just in Spanish to ensure that we are answering those questions. Okay, well, having said that, again, Commissioner Roberts, I really thank you for your time here. Again, I can't speak enough about the partnership that we've been able to have with different parts of your department and the people we've been able to work with on different levels. We're really grateful for you being here today and just continuing to be a good partner. And I'm hoping that viewers who are either new to what the services that you all provide will take advantage of some of those things like Rentsmart or the landlord training or many of the other things you mentioned and connect with you in the future.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks again for the opportunity. And thank you to Safe and Sound for all the work that you guys do. I've worked alongside your team in the field for many years, and I think you guys perform a critical function for our neighborhood. So thank you for the work you guys do, and thanks for the opportunity to continue to partner.
All right, so we had just a little bit of some technical issues. So I will be sharing this live to our Facebook page. I will be tagging the Department of Neighborhood Services. If you're watching this at a later date, please still add your questions, comments, concerns to the feed. I'll be monitoring it. And thank you everybody so much. And I think that's all we've got. All right, bye.
Bye, thank you.